Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à l'effet de distanciation, un balado où nous parlons de la communauté théâtrale montréalaise et j'essaie d'aborder et décortiquer les différentes questions qui, en tant que jeune artiste faisant ses débuts, m'interpellent en cette ère étrange du COVID. Chaque épisode, je me sens un peu moins isolée et distancée de vous tous car j'ai la chance de dialoguer sur des sujets fascinants et de contacter un ou une artiste avec qui j'ai toujours voulu parler. Ensemble, nous posons une question et aujourd'hui c'est: est-ce que développement, changement et échec sont synonymes? Pourquoi est-ce nécessaire pour l'artiste de changer et même d'échouer? Je m'appelle Anne-Marie Saint-Louis, je suis une metteur en scène et une enseignante de théâtre. Ma passion principale a toujours été et demeure le théâtre, particulièrement le théâtre qui se veut communautaire, convivial et curieux. J'aime aussi les tartes, le café et les crayons à mine bien taillés. Je suis bilingue et j'aime ça parler franglais dans la vie. So today will be a bilingual show to wrap things up nicely. I'll be speaking to the director and teacher Olivia Woods, who will tell us all about how she got into directing and how taking risks and breaking patterns in your career is essential. And what else can you expect from this episode, apart from that magnificent interview? Well, you can expect my own deep dive into the topic and the last artistic recommendation of the season, which will help scratch your itch for more podcasts. Finally, your creative assignment will be to do something you supposedly suck at. Donc voilà le programme de l'épisode. Sans plus tarder, allons-y. Qu'est-ce que je pense de l'échec? Quels ont été mes échecs et qu'est-ce que j'en ai appris? So, what is failure in art and what have I failed at? Look, part of me thinks this is very depressing to talk about failure on the last episode. But part of me also knows that failure is beautiful and that failure is important and that quote unquote failure maybe doesn't even exist. The thing is, failure in life and art is not only unavoidable, it is essential. Because, as anyone will say, it leads to all those great things that we need but that we are afraid of, such as self-knowledge, challenging ourselves, growth, experimentation. In that sense, I find art particularly hard because you fail very publicly. You have to put yourself out there and run the risk of failing in the most public way with something that is the most intimate. In fact, you are constantly exposing yourself to failure when you are making art. But I do think it is a good thing because that's what makes art so alive, so thrilling, so high stakes, so real and raw, and also so fun. I find great comfort in the fact that two of my teachers have beautiful philosophies on growing and failing, actually. First, there's Julien Blais, who would always remark that the best at something are often the people who are the newest at it. He would often say, actually, that the best actors he worked with were those that had just started, those that were still really real, still unfazed, sort of more willing also to try things because they had no built-in patterns or assumptions or blockages. So for me, that sentiment he often expressed was humbling but also encouraging because it reminded me, yeah, I can still be the new one. There's still many, many more artistic fields that I can explore, and perhaps my inexperience will be my asset and not my weakness. And then there's Julia Cameron, who I think I've talked about in every episode. Sorry. But who wrote The Artist's Way, and she has this beautiful quote, which is, change feels like failure in the middle. And when I read that, it really stopped me in my tracks. I love it. You know, the thing about changing careers or trying something new or just, making art is that you necessarily have to try and fail and try again to be able to do anything. The effort, the process, and the failure are all parts of the artistic journey. And anyone brave enough to take on that effort and to confront that potential failure, I think deserves all the praise and all the grants and all the recognition. Like Marilyn said last week, it's not so much about talent, it's about starting. She was saying that starting was the hardest. I agree. I also think continuing is hard. The whole doing of it is what it's all about, not so much how good you are. And I think that for myself, that's basically the only reason I'm here, right? It's the satisfaction and the joy of doing that trumps the agony of not doing it out of fear. But look, I don't want to be hypocritical. Of course, I hate failing, I'm a super achiever. I like to get my little gold star. I like to feel like I'm talented, as everyone does. So I don't want you to think that I'm above failure. I think it is good for you, even though it hurts. And most importantly, I think it's good to look at the moments that you failed and trying to understand what happened, what you've gained from that. So maybe that's an exercise for you to try. Here are examples of some of my shortcomings or failures in the last couple years. And here's what they've taught me. So the first thing is when I did not get accepted into the playwriting program at Concordia, I figured, I guess I'm not good enough at writing. But I loved writing. But when I didn't get accepted, I thought, okay, no problem. Community theater will be my thing. And I think that's often what I do when a door closes in front of me or I feel like I'm not good at something. I will latch on to this other interest and suddenly claim that it is my thing. And I think that can be really good. It can maybe be a bit damaging if, suddenly I have a million things and I'm not really sticking to something when it gets hard. But what I realized is that former interests that maybe you abandon at some point, they never really go away. And with perspective, you realize, actually, maybe I'm not that bad of a singer or writer or actor, even though I didn't make it or whatever. I actually don't need to let those go. And I have these skills that are in my body. I can still learn from those things. I could still practice them. I can still enjoy them. So I think that has been a big lesson for me. The second example is last year when I did my Fringe show, PB&J. I was really disappointed with how few artists that I invited came to see the show or seemed to care about it. It kind of hurt to feel like no one was interested. and that the organizers of the festival didn't come and that I didn't get nominated for awards. And it's not, I don't think of it as a failure because actually I was very proud of the play. I thought it was excellent, excellent writing, excellent acting. But I realized that I was kind of hiding from doing something that was truly original because I was scared. And I didn't really believe in myself as an artist. Um, so, like, I used the fact that it was a Breakfast Club adaptation as a crutch, as something to lean on. Even though, just FYI, the text that Eleonore wrote was totally original, was quite unique. So there was no reason for us to be in the shadow of that movie from the 80s. So that taught me that people are actually way more interested when what you do is your own. I thought that, oh, the fact that it's a twist on the Breakfast Club would be like a hook, but I think it's maybe the opposite. I mean, I don't know, but my sense right now is that people are more interested when you don't shy away from doing something that's 100% you and it's never been done before. So now we continue our show with this season's final special interview with actor, director, and teacher Olivia Woods. If you don't know her, she's really making her mark in the Anglophone theater world as an emerging artist. For the short time I've known her, I am already really impressed by her work and her attitude. She's one of the participants in this project I'm doing, Crush, where she led an amazing workshop on how to overcome what is blocking you as an artist. For that reason, and because she is awesome, I thought it would be perfect to talk to her today. Here is her bio. So Olivia Woods is an emerging artist who strives to create connection and community through her directing, acting, and teaching work. Most recently, Olivia was selected by the National Theatre School's Art Apart initiative to direct Cosmonaut Number 1, a project which aimed to create a theatrical experience through the digital medium. Additional assistant directing credits include Encore from Table d'Hôte, Blue Stockings from Persephone Theatre. Selected acting credits include Cause and Effect, Hey Lady Productions, When Memories Have Us, The Seagull Center, The Blood Countess from Revolution They Wrote, and Linge Sale from Other Coast Theatre. Currently, Olivia is assistant directing En Pointe with Tableau d'Hôte Theatre, a socially distanced episodic series of bilingual short plays set in Pointe St. Charles. So, hello, Olivia. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Woohoo! Thanks for being here. So, on today's episode, I talked a lot about some of the mistakes that I've made in my career. Just trying to be honest about that and how I grew from those. And another big topic was how vital it is to embrace new challenges, to sort of not stay stuck in what I'm comfortable in, for me. So I wanted to start to talk about your experience studying something that's a little scary for me, which is performance. So you studied as a performer to be an actor, and you still are an actor. So what is it about performance that you love? And is there also something that you find challenging about it?
Lots of both. I think what I love most about the process of performance and why I've kind of stayed in the theater industry more than film is just I really just love like the process of collaboration, and I love kind of the excitement of just being in a room and figuring things out with people and just playing. Like I love when I'm really able to, even if it's a serious show, to just kind of remember like how stupid it is, or just like how I'm just like playing in an imaginative world, and how much freedom there is in that. And so yeah, just the energy when I'm kind of able to tap into that and like just really
Mm.
being with a person in that moment is really exciting for me. I think the biggest challenge for me I had been finding was just like getting stuck
Mm.
and like kind of going back into like a pattern. And it is really hard to like find this kind of real energy with someone and like to really be in this place where you're actually listening to what they're saying and
Mm.
taking risks and listening, and there's so many things to think about, which is why it's so exciting.
Okay.
I think it's kind of easy to just do what you know works and do what you feel comfortable
Mm.
doing and not take like a risk to look
Yeah.
stupid, because that's the hard thing about acting is you do an audition and you're like, here's me, and then
Mm.
it's like, no. So
Oh man.
it's very vulnerable. It's
Yeah.
very, very vulnerable all the time.
Yeah. Oh man, it sounds super hard, but rewarding, like you said, to have that connection. Okay. Awesome. So, how about directing? I know you're a director and I love talking about directing. So let's get into that. How can you tell us a bit the story of how you started directing? Was it a thing since you were a kid or was it recent? Yeah.
No, yeah, I have always been into acting and performance
Yeah.
since a very young age, and that was like what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
And I actually came to directing through teaching. I did in the middle of my degree, I did a class called Designing and Conducting an Acting Workshop at Concordia, and that class was just teaching acting, and that was the class where I was like, oh no, like this is like what I want to do. Like this,
Mm.
I just felt kind of like as a teacher, like there's just so much, I don't know, just creative possibilities of like how you can like create the space and how to get
Mm.
people to where you want to get them. And I just felt so
That's
much
so
more just free and excited. So um that's when I was like kind of this beginning of like, oh, I really I want, that's where I want to focus a lot of my energy.
mm.
And then and so directing was kind of this thing that was just, I don't know, there, and I was interested in, but I
Mm.
don't know, directing, just that word is such like a status in my brain.
Mm.
So it was kind of like, okay, maybe one day. And then I kind of just ended up assistant directing Line in the Streets at Concordia. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'd been teaching with Liz Valdez, and then she asked me to assistant direct Encore with her. And
Mm.
so I was kind of just able to watch these really great women work, and especially with Liz, because I watched her, I've worked with her a lot as a teacher. So
Mm.
kind of just watching the way like both of those processes, like just how she's able to work in so many of the same ways. And
Yeah.
yeah, so watching her work was like, oh, okay, like it is so similar, and I can do so many of the same things. It's just with directing, there's this whole, you're telling a story too, and like that's the
Mm.
goal, and like everything you're doing like has that goal, as opposed to teaching. The goal is just like, what do my students need, and like how do I get them there.
Right.
So
Mm.
yeah, that's, I think after those experiences I was kind of able to say like, oh no, I want to do more of that. And so that's, since then
Yeah.
I've more like grabbing the opportunities.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think has it sort of like carved its place as like now your ultimate goal, or is it still open of like, oh, I like teaching, I like acting, I like directing?
I think right now I think directing and teaching are kind of like the two that I'm like, oh, this is me, and these
Mm.
practices like really like inform each other and
Yeah.
help to work in each other, and both of them feel just very similar in the way I work and the way I approach
Mm.
them. I think acting right now is just it's just not where I'm putting as much of my energy right now. Like I still love it. I just noticed that
Mm.
I'm just not putting in the work and not feeling like as
Mm.
just as driven to like make
Yeah.
those goals happen. So I think for me, acting is kind of more something. I also know that I need to do it because I notice how much it helps my directing and teaching work. I was getting into a little bit of rut with teaching too, where I was like saying the same things. I'm saying the same things,
Yeah.
and I know how to push students, but I kind of forget what it feels like. So I'm like, oh, like follow your impulses, like like sit in the uncomfortable. And then I was doing the acting work, and I was like, this is so hard. Like, what? What do you mean? What does that mean, an impulse? Like, what are you saying? So it really helped me get back on the other side and be able to get into more of the brains of my students. So I think I love acting and I want to keep doing it. But I think it's in a different priority for me.
Yeah. This question always fascinates me. Do you think you're the same kind of artist when you're acting versus teaching versus directing?
I mean, in a lot of ways, I want to say yes. I think I struggle with the same things in all of them in a way. Um, I think, I think I'm just, yeah, I think I'm the same. I bring the same energy. I hope that I hope that I do at least. And I have like the same values of like how I like to work. I guess it comes back to the goals, right? Like when you're acting, it's not about what you want big picture, it's making someone else's vision happen. And so there's a lot more focus on like, what are other people looking for from me? And then with directing, it's like this thing about the story, right? Like that's the priority. That's even though I like working so collaboratively and focusing on a process, like that is what is important. So I have to keep reminding myself of that. And then then teaching, it's not about that at all. It's about just what the students learn. And so I notice sometimes a little bit, I call it my directing brain coming in at the end of like the teaching semester when we do their outcomes. And so I like notice a couple times being like, no, the staging should be like this, or this would look better. I was like, actually, Olivia, like that doesn't matter right now. Like,
right.
That's your ego trying to show other people, like, look what Olivia did. And that's not for the students. So yeah, they're constantly arguing sometimes, but they help each other too.
Yeah. Sometimes you really feel like you're failing at something, but then a couple weeks go by and like, oh no, that was actually super helpful in my evolution. So you're a person who's changed sort of direction. Have you anything to maybe give as advice to people who are maybe like, maybe I don't want to act anymore, or maybe I want to explore something else, but they're maybe afraid of failing, like being in that moment of uncertainty before change can happen?
I don't know. It's hard also to not think about changing and this like super linearly, because that's never how it feels.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
So all over the place. So I guess I would say like, don't worry about labels too much, like, and don't stress about what you're trying to be and what you are, and don't let what you've been calling yourself hold you back. Because I think for me, like only recently have I been like, oh, I don't want to focus as much on acting. Even right then I was like, oh yeah, I'm saying that out loud. But like I've been doing this for a really long, I've been thinking this way and taking actions in this direction for a really long time. So when I would share that with people would be like, yeah, that makes sense. I thought you already had said that. But I was like, no, this feels new for me. So I don't know, I guess just don't put pressure on like where are you moving towards. Just kind of keep one step at a time. Like this is what I'm more excited by. This is what I want to work on, and just like, yeah, you don't have to label yourself. You can just do what you want to do.
That's such good advice. And it's really in our heads. Like we're like, but people see me as like an actor. And it's like, no, like that doesn't matter. You can call yourself whatever you want, actually. Like, and if it empowers you to say you're a director, even if you don't feel like it yet, like do it,
I don't know. I'm a big believer too in just like, you're an artist the moment you say you're an artist. Like you don't need to earn that title. I don't think there's any hierarchy or status in like how much money you're making during that title.
So the 3 keys to good directing in your eyes. I'm very curious. What do you think are the keys to good directing?
Okay. So where I am right now, and this is probably also like what I am finding the hardest. So I'm like, this is what I need to keep. This is like essential for me right now too.
Yeah.
I think the first one, this is the one that you're going to hear a million times, but listening.
Yeah.
And I think there's just such a difference when you realize like, oh, I'm actually listening to what's happening right now. Because every time you watch a scene or you watch something, you have to be like actually open to what's happening in front of you and not what happened like 5 minutes before. And I'm really noticing this right now. I'm assistant directing on point with Table d'Hôte. And so as an assistant director, you're doing a lot of writing and notes, and you know, there's a lot more like talking with the director after, or just, you know, you're not going to give notes after every run. So I'm doing a lot of like taking notes, and then the run will happen again. And I notice myself sometimes like not being like, if I see a lot of the same notes, like not being as active and being like, oh, well, I've already acknowledged that or something in my head. And like, I'm really working on like, no, okay, like every time what you thought didn't work before, so maybe an actor picked up on something and they've changed something, and you have to be open that that's different now. Number 2, I'm going to start with a little anecdote.
Yes.
I don't know how to frame it. I don't know what the word is. I just know what the feeling is. That was the most artisty thing I've ever said. But so I recently was directing Cosmonaut #1, this digital adaptation of a show. Me and my team, we were like, how? What are we doing? So there was kind of this feeling at the beginning of like, okay, how are we going to work? You know, so at the beginning, before rehearsal, we were kind of like, okay, I think this is the plan, because it was like with design, normally there's this really clear direction for how like design elements work, of like what that process is, like design presentations, like checking in, and then for this show it was like, wait, I think we need to decide the design before we can actually walk the show. So it was just, we had to really create a new way of working. And so we were really checking in with each other at the beginning, and at the end of rehearsal, like, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what should we do tomorrow? Like, it was very one step at a time. By the second half, we had kind of found a pattern and a way of doing things, and we like felt better, and we were able to work a bit more efficiently. But then in kind of our post-mortem and reflecting after, we realized like, oh, actually, that's where we lost a lot of things. Like, that's where a lot of the problems started to arise, is when we kind of got really comfortable in a way of doing things. And okay, good, we figured it out. So I think some word of like constant navigation, like being able to readjust, like you're just always checking yourself, and it's kind of very active, and like being ready for things to change, and not being too set in like, this is the way we do things. The last one, I'm gonna say, calling it like let fear fuel you.
Whoa.
I think what I'm realizing about directing is like, you don't have to have the answers. You just kind of have to like trust yourself that you're gonna figure it out. So I think like Laura Quigley, when I directed with her at Concordia, she said something that I love, that was just like, I never direct a show unless the thought of directing it makes me want to throw up. And I love it so much, because it's like this feeling of like, when you look at a play and you're like, how do I do this? Like, I like it, but I don't know what this is yet, as opposed to, you know, sometimes you look at a show and you're like, okay, I know what this could be. Like, very, and you're like, okay, I could do that.
Yeah.
And kind of leading more towards those projects that like, there's something very unknown, and like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw a lot of that, I think, watching Liz work, and just like, I would just see her like approach these moments and being like, not knowing how she's gonna handle this tough moment, but she's just gonna dive in, and knowing that like she's capable of figuring it out. So yes, trusting fear and just trusting yourself It all comes
Yes.
from that too, doesn't it?
I love it. So that's a perfect transition, talking about what makes us afraid. I was wondering if you wanted to, if you would feel comfortable sharing. I'll share also something that we feel like there's still room for growth, and that maybe we're not quite there yet. We're still learning. I mean, you've talked about those three areas that you feel like you're still striving towards them. For myself, I think I love being comfortable. I love creating spaces that are comfortable. I like making people feel comfortable. But then I know that I need to like get into areas of conflict too, and of discomfort. And right now, for me, it feels like that lies in my, I guess, my lack of like activism in some sense, or also not really understanding how can I really practice what I preach. I really want to create something that's like engaged and political and inclusive, but I feel like maybe I'm not doing it right quite yet. So I wanna keep understanding that and consuming things that are a little bit more inclusive also. Just to surround myself with that. Yeah, it's an area where I'm trying, and also I'm okay with failing. Like I'm trying to be more open to people being like, no, that's not right. And but the important thing is to like keep attempting, you know. I think the real mistake comes when you're so afraid of like failure that you don't try a second time.
Yeah, I think teaching has helped me do that because I've had I guess a lot of space to try things and like have a lot of freedom in like creating spaces. And so in doing that, I've had a lot of moments of oh no, no, I'm gonna change that. And so having like a new semester too, like able to like be able to
That's
really really think about like what I want to rework. But yeah, I really echo what you're saying about activism and inclusivity. I think I've really noticed that I've been also just, I think like what affects the activism that affects my work is the issues that affects me, that affect me. And so what I really, want to change is just everything that I care about, like politically, like, and on paper, and will fight for, in politics and in my activism work, like how can those issues like actually affect my work?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
how can I make sure that that like diversity is not just that my spaces are diverse, and that I'm actually listening to those voices, not in a way that is like for an image. It's really
totally.
I've been reading a lot too about just like decolonizing theater practices too. That's something that's like I think I really want to like dive into this year. I'm really interested in working in like non kind of hierarchy models. So that's something I think where I have like I wanna learn more about.
Totally. Yeah, that's good. You don't have to. Did you want to say more? Or you don't have to.
Another thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I don't know. You can cut it out. But I guess with finding. Oh, wait. So I want to work collaboratively, but I think the other thing I'm struggling with too is how to work really collaboratively, but also be an artist that's like willing to make hard decisions. And I think another thing I struggle with, like in my teaching work, is this feeling of being likable, this feeling of wanting to, be liked as a person. And so I think I think that comes in my directing work too a bit, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand 100%.
How to be willing to push, but also listen
Mm.
and create a great, safe, collaborative working environment.
I love everything you're saying. And what I just realized is like, I actually love hearing people talk about like their mistakes or like where they're still growing, because I find it's like it's when it actually like it gives you a more full picture of the person. Like, I don't know, there's something really like, I don't know, I feel connected to people when they talk about where they're struggling more than when they
100%.
talk about like what they're succeeding at, you know?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And
Yeah.
because all artists are like asking these questions, right? Or at least I like that's the kind of person I want to be like, and that's the kind of artist I want to surround myself with, are the people
Yeah.
who are at the top of their career and still being like, did I handle that moment right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So last question. So who is helping you grow right now?
I mean, I think right now, just being able to work on this project with Table d'Hôte and Matthew Murphy Perron, he's just giving me space right now to work as an assistant director. So that's
Yeah.
really great to be able to dive in to that world again, and be doing theater in a way that I've never done before, rehearsing at
Yeah.
a park.
Is
And
it at a park?
yeah,
Or
we're rehearsing at a park and indoors when it rains, like once in
nice.
a while, and with masks and everything.
Wow.
But yeah, it's also a project that's like not doesn't feel like it's for the Montreal theater community. It's very for the community where it's set and who it's written about. So that's really nice.
Love that.
So that's definitely helping me grow right now. And then I would say also just like every artist that I've been talking to in quarantine
Right.
who's just like in the same space that I am, that is like, what am I doing? And having time to reflect
Yeah,
and
same.
all artists who are just, yeah, and trying something new and trying and hearing people talk about different artistic areas that they're trying something new in, different ways to find creativity. So I think, I don't know, anyone I've had a conversation with during this time to be like, okay, good, we're on the same page, or
Yeah.
we're thinking about the same things.
Thank you, Olivia. It was a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your honesty, and best of luck for the run of your show. Pour terminer cette saison, je veux honorer la raison qu'on est là, vous et moi, et vous faire une recommandation pas très originale, celle d'écouter d'autres balados. Si vous êtes comme moi, vous adorez les balados. Peut-être qu'ils ont même changé votre vie. Donc, je lève mon verre symbolique au balado qui nous accompagne dans les moments difficiles et dans les moments anodins. Quand on attend l'autobus, quand on lave la vaisselle. Je lève mon verre à ces balados qui nous ont ouvert les yeux et ouvert les oreilles. Pour ma part, depuis que je suis accro au podcast, j'ai aucune angoisse à voyager seule. À partir seule à l'aventure, à prendre des longues marches. J'aime la proximité, l'intimité du médium. J'aime ça me familiariser avec le style des animateurs. Il m'aide à prêter attention à ce qui m'entoure, tout en m'englobant dans une bulle sonore. Simultanément, il me donne le goût d'aller explorer le monde entier et d'apprécier la beauté de mon propre jardin. Voici donc, si jamais vous êtes à la recherche de bons podcasts à écouter, 5 podcasts en français et 10 podcasts en anglais que je considère comme étant excellents et que je suis pas mal certaine que vous aussi allez adorer. Merci à notre invitée Olivia qui m'a récemment conseillé 2 podcasts sur cette liste. Alors le thème des 5 podcasts en français, c'est l'art. Donc on a numéro 1, la Off Radio du OFTA. Numéro 2, La vie secrète de l'art de Simon Boulris. Numéro 3, Théâtre à la carte de Radio-Canada. Numéro 4, J'aime Hydro de Porte-Parole et numéro 5, Journal de confinement de Wajdi Mouawad. En anglais maintenant, on a dans le genre un peu bien-être et pour des podcasts un peu plus légers, je vous conseille Happier, Movie Therapy, The Sporkful et By the Book. Maintenant, pour un podcast un peu plus artistique, 20,000 Hertz, Everything is Alive, le podcast Start With This et le podcast Stage Advice. Enfin, pour 2 podcasts féministes, Unladylike et puis The Guilty Feminist. Alors voilà mes recommandations. Si vous êtes fan d'un sujet super ésotérique, je vous parie qu'il existe un podcast là-dessus. Ou alors, c'est à vous de le créer. Bon, maintenant, quelle est votre mission créative pour la semaine? Cette semaine, c'est très simple. Vous devez faire quelque chose qui vous tente beaucoup et vous attire, mais en quoi vous pensez être très mauvais. Et simplement voir ce que ça donne, voir si ça libère des choses en vous. Je réfléchissais beaucoup à comment on se bloque soi-même. Comment on est constamment en train de se limiter quand on dit que certaines activités ou certains passe-temps ne sont pas pour nous, entre guillemets, parce qu'on n'est pas assez bon. C'est fou. C'est fou comment on se met des barrières. Et la plupart du temps, c'est une illusion totale. 2 trucs où je pensais être vraiment trop nulle, c'est les 2D, la danse et le dessin. Mais je vais vous dire que cette semaine, j'en ai plus appris sur moi-même et sur le pouvoir de l'art en dansant et en dessinant qu'en faisant du théâtre. Donc, d'abord, j'ai recommencé à faire du Zumba cette semaine. J'aime sentir la musique qui vibre dans mon corps. J'aime beaucoup l'attitude des danseuses de hip-hop. Et c'est ça qui est tellement cool du Zumba, c'est que tout le monde s'en fout. Pour vrai, même la prof s'en fout. L'important, c'est pas que tu réussisses la chorégraphie, c'est que tu bouges. Donc, j'adore ça. Puis j'ai réalisé que ce sentiment de bouger à l'unisson avec des étrangers, ça m'apprend beaucoup, ça m'allume. C'est le fait de taper du pied en même temps que d'autres personnes, de voir tous ces corps différents qui s'expriment, je trouve ça vraiment magique. Puis, même chose pour le dessin. Samedi, j'ai décidé d'aller voir les murales dans le Myland, puis de les dessiner, de les calquer. J'étais toute seule, j'avais mon petit carnet, puis c'est, je pense, la première fois de ma vie où j'ai décidé de dessiner plutôt que d'écrire. Comme le dessin, ça me vient vraiment pas naturellement. Mais j'ai recopié ce que je voyais, puis j'avais l'impression de participer à cet élan créatif général de faire de l'art dans la rue. C'était vraiment cool. Puis c'est vraiment bête, là, mais je pense que c'est parce que j'avais le bon stylo que j'ai décidé de dessiner. Tu sais, j'avais un stylo vraiment fin, puis des fois, c'est ça qu'il faut, tu sais. Il faut qu'il y ait un cours de Zumba, il faut qu'on ait un bon stylo. C'est tout ce qu'il faut pour que ça déclenche quelque chose. Puis, je me suis sentie vraiment bien à dessiner. J'ai appris des choses aussi. J'ai remarqué que j'observais les détails visuels et esthétiques de l'environnement. Donc, je vous donne comme mission de faire une activité artistique qui vous attire, mais qui vous fait peur et qui est peut-être trop difficile pour vous. And that's it for today's episode. This podcast was created by me, Anne-Marie Saint-Louis. Music is by the amazing Blue Dot Sessions. Thank you, Olivia, for being on today's episode. I'd like to extend a big thank you to all the guests that have been on my podcast. Thank you for spending some time with me over Zoom. Thanks for trusting me. It was a blast, and I learned a lot from all of you. I'd also like to thank my friends and family who have really supported me on this journey. Your encouragement made my day. I'm thinking of Laurent, Natasha, Carmen, Karine, Evelyn, Itzen, Vanessa, to name but a few. Also, a big thank you to all of you that decided to give this podcast a listen. As I mentioned, we are going to take a little break and return for season 2 around the beginning of December, which I believe will be jam-packed with some cool new interviews and even a holiday special. So much love to all of you. I have faith we will get through these times. And you know, I always leave you with this sentence: take heart and make art. I believe art takes courage. You probably know this. The word courage comes from the French word cœur, which is heart. Art takes courage and it takes heart. You need your heart to be an artist. And that's the most important thing. Brains, talent, skills, education, discipline, doesn't really matter. The most important thing is to have heart. So I hope this podcast has given you that courage, has helped you to keep showing up and making stuff, and showed you it's okay to reach out to others, and it's good to put yourself out there. So until next time, I'm Anne-Marie Saint-Louis, and this is The Distancing Effect. Remember, take heart and make